This is Kay Rudolph. This is the first presentation in a series based on research by Paul Graham that was published in the National Genealogical Society Journal in December 2013. A love story proved the life and family of Laura Lavinia Kelly Combs of Atlanta and Augusta, Georgia. I chose this case study for a series of videos because it illustrates a wealth of resources and research techniques. In this part of the case study, the researchers make use of popular magazines, academic journals, local histories and biographic collections, deeds, Google Maps, newspapers, city directories, and historical maps. The focus of this section is going to be on land, particularly land in the urban setting, though it has skills that are useful to researchers in any setting. So starting out with the legend, this story actually does not begin with a family research question. It begins with a magazine article. Back in 1954, Jet Magazine did an article on Atlanta. And in that article, it talked about the history and some of the legends of Atlanta's early African-American community. Particularly, it mentioned just a simple line: a woman, Mary Combs, was the first Negro property holder. That was the sum total of the information that researchers had to begin with. And somebody got curious and wanted to learn more about this woman who was the first Negro property holder in Atlanta. So we're going to follow their initial steps. They started with the easy research, which is land records. They wanted to find a deed confirming that Mary Combs, a free woman of color, had purchased land in antebellum Atlanta. So the records to that would be the deed records for Fulton County, and they're available today on the Family Search website, though when researchers first picked up this story, they would have had to go and visit the county clerk's office or registry of deeds to see the records that we can now see for free online. They wrote up their research in the journal, the Atlanta Historical Bulletin, in the spring of 1977, an article, Free Blacks in Antebellum Atlanta. It noted here the origins of the story that appeared in 1954. According to E.R. Carter, the chronicler of the Black experience in Atlanta during the 19th century, who based his information on personal interviews with Ransom Montgomery's brother, Mary Combs was the first person of color to acquire property in the city of Atlanta. County records reveal that she bought a lot in the city in fee simple on July 7, 1856 for $250. 6 years later, she sold the lot for double what she had paid for it. Now, it's very nice that this journal has gone and given us some footnotes, so we flip to the end of the article, read those footnotes, and the key thing with doing your research properly is check the resources that researchers cite and make sure that they have evaluated the information correctly. So we're going to go and look at Edward Carter's book, The Black Side, A Partial History of the Business, Religious, and Educational Side of the Negro in Atlanta, Georgia. And we're going to look at these deeds that the authors say relate to this Mary Combs, who was reported to be the first African American to own property in Atlanta. Using a simple Google search, we can find this book by Carter on Hattie Trust, the digital library, and it is available in full view. So we scroll through and read this section relating to Mary Combs. He notes, at this time there were not more than 50 colored persons here, and at that number only 2 were not slaves. These were Mary Combs and Ransom Montgomery. Mary Combs was the first colored person to own property in this city. Her property occupied the place where Wheat Street meets Peachtree Street. This property she sold, and with the proceeds purchased her husband. So we've got a lot more detail and a much more intriguing legend. Let's see how that detail matches up with the researchers discovered in 1977. So we know from the 1977 research, the name of the woman they found in the deed records was Mary Combs. They claim that she was a free woman of color who resided in Atlanta, also known as Terminus, that she acquired property in Atlanta, according to E.R. Carter's 19th century interview with Ransom Montgomery's brother, and that she bought the lot in 1856 for $250, and that's recorded in Fulton County Deeds, Volume E, and she sold the lot in 1862 for $500, and that should be found in Fulton County Deeds, Volume TT. The 1894 report, again, agreed with the 1977. The woman's name was Mary Combs. She was a free woman of color. She owned property in Atlanta, and her property was located where Wheat Street meets Peachtree Street. She sold the property before the end of the Civil War, and with that money she bought her husband's freedom. The first commandment of research: check the facts, check the details. We have 2 women named Mary Combs in 2 different records. We have the 1894 record based on Ransom Montgomery's brother's interview, and we have the 1856 and 1862 deeds. Are these referring to the same woman? Is there only one woman named Mary Combs in Atlanta? And was the woman who purchased the property in 1856 and sold it in 1862 a free woman of color? All of these details have to be true in order for the legend to be true. So let's plan out what we're going to do. The first thing that we need to do is confirm that the property that was recorded in the deeds is actually at Wheat Street and Peachtree as reported by Carter. So we're going to transcribe the land description in the deeds, and we're going to check that location on contemporary maps to see if it fits up. The easiest place to find deeds is at the Family Search website. So we'll go to the Family Search website, click on Search, select Catalog, enter the location we're looking for, choose it from the standard geographic definition, and search. Scroll through the list of categories to look at the category for land and property, and select this option, Deeds and Mortgages, 1854 to 1903. Opening that up, these records are available online. They've been digitized. They've not been indexed, but that's fine. We know the volume and page number we're looking for. We're looking for Volume E. We scroll down. We select that option here. And we're going to just essentially thumb through until we find page 456. It's basically like working with the original books. Here we are, page 456, State of Georgia, Burke County. This indenture made the 7th day of May in the year of our Lord, 1856, between Frederick L. Pentecost, maybe, of the state aforesaid and county of Burke on the one part, and Mary Combs of the state aforesaid and county of Fulton on the other part. Okay, this is the right deed. We're going to go through and look for the land description. That's what we're really interested in at this point is we want to confirm, is this the piece of land that Carter described as being at the corner of Wheat and Peach Street? So we transcribed this section. It's described as being a certain city lot number 23 and also a small fraction of city lot number 17, lying the north side of aforesaid lot number 23 and being part of original land lot number 45 of originally Henry, now Fulton County, and bounded as follows. On the east by, it could be Levy Street. It's a difficult one. Levy, here's an S, south. It could be CV Street. 295 feet, and on the south by city lot number 22, 209 feet on the west by city lot number 18 and Bolin Alley, and north by city lot number 17, and containing 1 1/4 acres more or less. Let's take a look at the description in the second deed, the deed of sale in volume TT. We're going to scroll down, and again, we're going to transcribe the description. Here it's much clearer that it's CV Street and Bolin's Alley, essentially the exact same description. So now we're going to compare the descriptions from Carter's 1894 to the 1856 and 1862. Carter said simply where Wheat Street meets Peachtree Street. We don't see any reference here to a Wheat Street or Peachtree Street. These two lots don't sound like the same lot, but are they? Now, a quick check that I frequently make is with Google Maps to look up for an address. But on Google Maps, I find nothing like a CV or Levy or any conceivable variant, and nothing like Bolin or Bolin's Alley. I'm thinking back to my history of Atlanta. And the one thing that I remember about Atlanta is from Gone with the Wind that the city was badly destroyed during the Civil War. So we're dealing with a lost location, and we want to see what we can do to identify where these places that are described in the deeds were exactly. First place to start is by reviewing the history of Atlanta, and Wikipedia is an excellent resource to begin with. There is a mention here on Sherman prepared for the Union's army march to the sea in 1864 by ordering Atlanta to be burned to the ground, sparing only the city's churches and hospitals. And after the Civil War ended in 1865, Atlanta was gradually rebuilt. So it's quite conceivable that the street names were changed as the city was rebuilt. Another article I found on Wikipedia is this one, a list of former Atlanta street names. This also includes an article that was published in 1903 in the Atlanta Constitution, and a link to that article's transcription. Doing a search for the word CV Street, I find one reference to it here, Boulevard Factory Street, formerly Bourne and CV Streets. A discussion by the author who had written this article notes, I prepared from the records a list which I herewith present to you, showing that 447 changes have been made in the names of streets, several of them having borne as many as 8 different names. He goes on to say this causes serious trouble and inconvenience to the real estate agents and genealogists like ourselves who like to make use of these records. So it's going to be a little bit more difficult to locate this land. I'm going to have to use some other tools. One tool that I can use is city directories. They usually carry a section describing the street names and locations, and being published every year, they should be up to date with the name changes. I find that the very first edition available is from 1859-1860, which is right in the middle of that period between these two deeds, the 1856 deed of purchase and the 1862 deed of sale. Is that available online? A good first place to look is WorldCat. Search there tells me that Williams' Atlanta directory is only available at the Family History Library. That's not going to be much help. So I'm going to do a search on Google for the term Williams and Atlanta and directory. And I've got to tell you, I did this search several times, and I find that Google is very sensitive to where you put the apostrophe. So it actually is best to leave out the apostrophe entirely. If you don't find it the first time, try it a different way. So it turns out that this directory is available on HathiTrust. It shows that it is volume 1, so that is the first year that there was a city directory for Atlanta. So we're going to scroll through until we come to the table of contents. And down here it says the street directory is on page 15. Let's go through to page 15. There was no Bolin, no Seavey or Levy or any conceivable variant that I could find in this directory at all. Okay, that didn't work. On to the next possible solution. Sanborn fire insurance maps are available for many urban areas. I'm not sure how early they were available for Atlanta, but let's find out. So I do a Google search for Sanborn insurance maps, Atlanta, Georgia. That leads me to this link here. I find the earliest map available is 1886. Well, it's possible that these streets do exist, but were not consequential enough to be described in a city directory. So first I'm going to find Peachtree and Wheat, and we can see this is straight here downtown. Here's Wheat Street, goes up, and we have here Peach Street, which comes down and splits off into Peachtree here, whereas Peachtree itself goes on to North and South Pryor. And then over here we have Porter's Alley. But it does look like Carter's claim that Wheat Street meeting Peachtree is valid. However, I did not find anything for Levy or for Seavey or for Bolin's Alley. I took a look at the directory's street index itself and could not find anything for Bolin, anything for Levy, or anything for Seavey. Okay, next tool. I go back to Google and I do a search for Atlanta historical city lot maps because it mentions the city lot numbers. I want to see if I can find a map that shows city lot numbers that match up with the city lots that I read in the description. Found a great site here that has a collection of maps from various time periods. And here's a nice map that's from 1853, and it does have numbers here. And this number 45 caught my eye because I remembered in the land description it's talked about being part of original land lot number 45 of originally Henry and now Fulton County. Is that lot 45 mentioned in the deed, this lot 45 here? What are all of these other numbers that I find on this map? What do they refer to? It's not entirely clear from the legend on this map what they relate to. Exploring other maps on that website, I found this one of Fulton County from 1872 that gave me more evidence that supports my interpretation that that number 45 relates to that numbering system that was referred to in the deed. It does look like this is a numbering system for the original lots in the county. I'm going to do one more thing to see if I can be absolutely sure, if I can find any more evidence that will confirm for me irrefutably that the land in the deed is not the same as the wheat and peach tree corner that Carter refers to. And I'm going to do that by essentially doing a title search, searching for future descriptions of that land that might provide some clarity that is missing in the descriptions that we have right now. So I note in the record of sale that Mary Combs and Charles C. Rhodes were selling the property to Louis Schofield. All right, I'm going to go back to the Index of Deeds and I'm going to see if I can find a deed for Louis Schofield selling the property in turn. I'm going to look at this master index from the Family Search website and scroll to the page for Louis Schofield, looking for a sale related to land lot 45. And I find here the sale of 3 lots with the deeds located in volume G, page 527. Opening up the file for volume G and scrolling to page 527, here it is, the deed between Louis Schofield and William Markham, being part of original land lot number 45 in the 14th district of originally Henry, now Fulton County. And what catches my eye here is in the description of its boundaries, it speaks about a stake on the northeast corner of the rolling mill lot on the south line of the right-of-way of the Georgia Railroad. Now, I recall seeing another map in that Atlanta collection from the Civil War, and taking a look at that, there is this reference to item 8, the rolling mill, and that is in that same quadrangle that had been defined as 45 on the other maps. So what have we learned? We've learned that the land that Mary Combs purchased in 1856 and sold in 1862 is not the same property that Carter was describing in 1894. All right, that brings us to the key concepts of this section of the research. 1, the details matter. It is not enough to find a record for a person whose name is the name you're looking for and in the place you're looking for and doing the things you expect them to do. You need to look at all the details. If you aren't convinced that you've positively proved a conclusion, then write up your evidence analysis. The process of writing down all of the evidence that you have and your explanations of what that evidence means to you may lead you to recognize that you actually do have a stronger case than you had thought. Or it may lead you to realize that you just don't have key pieces of information that you need to prove your conclusion. Whatever you do, attach that evidence and your analysis to the profile on the Family Search family tree so that it will be available for you later when you come back to it, and so other researchers can take advantage of the work that you've done and built on it and not just repeat the errors of the past. And next, wait. You don't have to come to a conclusion. If you don't have the information to support that conclusion, wait. Researchers in the future may have evidence available to them that you did not have available to you. just as we today have the evidence that proves that the conclusions drawn in 1977 were incorrect. In our next video, we're going to actually take the step forward and uncover this real riddle of Mary Combs.